Hey everybody, welcome to module number 3. This is the module where we really start to dive into our sources and start doing our annotations. So if we take a look at what we got going on here, the introduction, we're going to do some studying about, what annotated bibliographies are, what these situations and now rhetorical appeals are, kind of giving us a lot of really good foundational material to work with, both as we start to write our paper and as we are looking at our sources. Okay. We really want to dig into those pieces so that we really have a sense of how we can look at a source critically, not just for what is said, but how it is being said. So we get our objectives and everything here. And if we just go ahead and just dive right into the learning activities, again, I've said this before, I like this page. This is a great place where you can just be ticking off. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, right? We have our readings here, okay, the readings that we want to be looking at. And kind of get a sense of, how to argue to inquire. And this is where we really start to dig into, like, what do they say? What does this make me think? What does this make me feel, right? Like, what are the questions that I have to ask, right? And then when we get into the rhetorical situation analysis and appeals, this really gets to the heart of how the article was written, right? How was this put together? What intentional choices did the author make to create the message in the way that they formatted it or created it, right? Like this message was formed in a particular way and was meant for us to react to it in a certain way. What were those choices? It could be word choice. It could be the structure of the argument. It could be the examples that are being used. There's so many different reasons and things that get us to react to a piece of writing in a particular way. And those are intentional choices that the author has made. We've got some reading on the annotated bibliography, taking a look at that. And then we get down here to our to-do list, which has our readings, our videos to watch. And then the big piece here is the first part of the annotated bibliography. Okay. So if we take a look at the discussion board, you'll notice that your initial post needs to be up by Valentine's Day. If it gets up on the 15th, it's probably not that big of a deal, right? Probably not that big of a deal. And then you need to have your replies to that by February the 18th. Now, you'll notice here there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy here. It says that you have one reply to one classmate, but down here it says reply to two. Go ahead and do the two replies. I'll go ahead and edit this so that you have that correct. You have the correct version there, right? But you do need to reply to at least two classmates by Sunday the 18th. So here's what we've got. You're going to take two of these articles to read. Okay, you're going to take two of these articles. I think you're going to find that they have a lot of different takes, a variety of viewpoints and stuff. So, any of those are going to work, but you're going to read two of those. And then in at least 300 words, you're going to take one of the two articles that you read, and then you're going to do some things with it. First off, you're going to analyze and evaluate that, right? You're going to use these questions to help guide you to that, right? The big thing we want to think about is, what is your take on, what do you think of these articles and why do you think that way? So if you look down here to the response questions, right? First off, a summary of the work, summarize that research topic that they are looking into. This is like, what were they thinking about? What were they really digging at? What was the thing that they were focusing on, right? Summarize the results and an analysis that are crucial to answering that question. So looking at, like, it's not just the author said this, the author found this. It's the author found this and it says blank about the topic, or this is what the author found and why and what they took from it or how they reacted to it, right? So it really asks you that next question. What new ideas and information did you find out of this? What comes out of this for you? What do you think of the conclusions made by the authors? Now, I think this is an interesting point here, because here's where you like, okay, do I agree with them and why, right? It's not, it's okay to agree or disagree. That doesn't really matter, but it's the why. How did you get there? What in the text made you think that way, right? And then examining the primary research that they conducted. What did you really see they did? What do you think of their analysis of the data that they found? All right, then in at least two responses, right? And again, I know it says at least one classmate. It is two, and I apologize for the confusion there. I will make sure to get all that cleaned up for you so that we're all on the same page. Um, in a really highly detailed and substantive reply, we really want you to take a look at what did they write, what did they find, what did you take from them, what did you take from their analysis of the work. I have to say, so far, I've really been impressed by the way you guys have attacked these discussion boards. You've really been avoiding the "I like that" or "I agree." You really are starting to take that. Okay, here's what I saw you say, and here's how I react to that. Right? You're really asking those questions, and I really do appreciate that because you guys are really digging in. Address two or more of the following questions. And so we have 4 questions down here that you can get. For instance, what did they miss? Right? What did they miss? Disagree by offering an alternative viewpoint. In other words, I see it meaning this, or this is how I might interpret it, or maybe this is another way of looking at it, right? Maybe that there's some places that, are you sure you saw this the right way, right? And then agree and offer points of analysis that they may not have used or utilized in that agreement, right? Now, I do, again, because you guys are doing really well with these discussion boards, this is really meant to be a critical, fresh-eyed, objective approach. So we're not looking to, negatively critique people. We're not looking to tear people down. This is not a place to argue the topic, right? What we are looking at is, when I read this, this is what I'm seeing. When I look at what you wrote, here's what I would need to better understand you, right? So we're not looking to tear each other down. We're looking at how can I be critical but objective and to help the original writer find the places that could be bolstered and strengthened and built up to make the argument stronger. So again, you're going to have one initial post by the 14th of February, and then you're going to reply to 2 other people by Sunday, the 18th. And then let's take a look at the annotated bibliography. Excuse me. So I really have to tell you that when I look at annotated bibliographies, and I know a lot of times people just like, oh, I'm just going to do the thing, right? Like, here's a source and here's the thing I found in it. When I, oftentimes when I see people taking research and sticking it into their paper, it's literally just that. They find a sentence and they stick it in. They don't understand the source as a whole. They don't understand what it was saying and how it got there, what its main points were, and how does this one line that they pulled from it represent the whole, right? Like, they find a line and then they use it. And so annotated bibliographies really force you to critique the source, critique that research that you find, right? Makes you aware of it, makes you analyze it, makes you say, yes, this is what I see and why I believe it is going to help me. Or maybe in a better context, why it won't help me, right? And so the annotated bibliography really forces you into that. You're going to do the first part for this module, and then you'll do the second part in module number 5. So what is the purpose here, right? The purpose is to conduct that secondary research, right? So here's my question. Here's the thing I'm looking for. Go find it, right? It represents a variety of sources. So now we're looking at all these different sources, different types of authors, different types of publications, different rationales, and then document that and then evaluate it. And we've got this nice little graphic that shows us the rhetorical situation in which we take, like, here's the writer, here's the reader. What do we know about that? What do we know about the subject? And what really brought us to this place where I see this text, and how does it match the context of that situation? Okay. And so we have, some information here for the total, you're going to have 8 sources total, right? 8 sources in the end between the two different parts. You're going to have 8 of these sources. They need to be relevant to the research, right? Like they have to be sources that you're like, yeah, I would use these, right? They're most likely going to be things I'm going to use. They should not be researching only perspectives with which you agree. And so it's okay to find competing viewpoints, right? Um, it's always good. Now we'll talk more about how to use that and how to consider those, right? But it is okay to find people that like, okay, here's what somebody else said, and here how it conflicts with mine or contrasts with mine, right? And then how does that help or hurt me in my position, right? Um, so what you're going to do is you're going to draft this. You're going to take 2 of the sources that represent opposing perspectives. Okay, so you're going to use for this assignment, you're going to use 2 sources, and those 2 sources have to be opposite or different perspectives, right? For instance, one of the examples I always use down here, there's a Mexican restaurant that we go to a lot down here, Los Bravos, and I says it has the best cheese dip in town. Well, somebody else could say, well, I like Hacienda better, right? And so that's a computing viewpoint. And so now I would use their perspective, right? And I would be analyzing and really annotating their perspective, right? It gives you some information on how to find that and what you're going to do, okay? Part 2 then is where you revise the 2 that you did, and then we do the rest of yours, right? We pull the rest of them in there. So what should we see in this assignment? First off, we should see the citations, right? Obviously, in APA style, you will show us where that source comes from, what it is, where it is, how to re-find it. Again, I would suggest using MyBib, but if you're using the library's database, the Ivy Tech library databases, or inspire.in.gov, which is another one, or another type of research database, a lot of those have the citations in there as well. So you're going to put that in first, right, in APA style. And then these are the annotations that we are specifically looking for, right? We want to see the author's name, credentials, title, publication. Now, it's going to be right there above it, but we want to hear your understanding of it, right? Like you can show that, right? And then a comprehensive summary. So really what I like to say is that, again, because sometimes people find a source, grab a piece, and throw it in their paper, right? Like they don't really understand what that source is about. This shows the reader, hey, I've read this source, I understand it, and I know what it's talking about, right? And then use the third person point of view, present tense, right? We are just summarizing. We're just explaining it. We're just showing those big main idea pieces, right? Again, the focus of this, the purpose of this is twofold. One of it is that, hey, I do have the sources, and the other is that, like, I understand what those sources are, right? So we do have some examples of what those are. We have some additional instructions for you. You're going to use 2 secondary sources that represent opposing viewpoints. You're going to summarize them, and you're going to share that with your reader so that we see what kinds of ideas you're out there finding. There's the rubric of how it'll be graded. Again, I always recommend that you take a look at that so you know how your scores will be broken down and how you will get how you can get your best score possible, right? So again, guys, I have been super impressed by everything you guys have been doing. You guys have been doing great. You're committed to the process. You're staying up to speed. You're asking great questions and clarifications. I love the fact that so many of you are being thoughtful and intentional about your choices. Please keep that up. And again, remember that if you have any questions at all, please make sure you're reaching out to me. Email is the best approach. That's what most of you are doing. That's the best way. I can reply to you, asynchronously, and again, try to get you that answer back as quick as possible. But again, if you need something, please make sure you're asking. Good luck, everybody.